Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Carving It Up Live right here on YouTube Live and Twitter. I am Bryson Carver. As always, we've got an excellent show for you guys today. Major League Baseball started yesterday. The women's Final Four is tonight. The men's Final Four is tomorrow night. What a time to be alive in sports, right? Got the NFL draft coming up in a few weeks. You got all these different quarterbacks. Who are the 49ers going to take? Are the Jets going to stick with Sam Darnold? All kinds of storylines in the world of sports. You got the NBA, obviously. Can the Lakers get back on their feet? The Nets are rolling still without Kevin Durant, and last night without James Harden. So all kinds of stuff to get into. I'll discuss Kevin Durant, and he was just fined $50,000 by the NBA. I will explain why that is absolutely the right move by Adam Silver in the league, considering what they've done recently with another player, if you know what I'm talking about. I'll get to that pretty soon. Also, Jalen Hurts is reportedly switching his number from number 2 to number 1, indicating, hey, I'm the guy. I'm the number 1 quarterback. And I'll explain to you why Philadelphia is making the same mistakes with Jalen Hurts as they just did with the guy I've been critical of, Carson Wentz. I'll get into that later in the show. Also, Paige Beckers out of UConn. What an unbelievable season she's had. What an unbelievable tournament she's had. I'll talk about her and why I think she can be one of the best players in the WNBA once she actually gets there, which she should be able to do after this year, but according to the rules, she unfortunately cannot. But going to start with some breaking news that came in about an hour before the show started, or maybe a few hours before the show started. Jeff Passan, baseball insider for ESPN, tweeted earlier today. About 3 hours ago. He said, "Huge news. Major League Baseball announces it will be moving the All-Star Game from Atlanta in response to the new voting laws passed by Georgia." Now, first of all, I feel bad for the Atlanta Braves. Of course, I'll get to the whole situation in just a second. I feel bad for the Atlanta Braves. That's who I feel the worst for, because, it's like, dang, we're not involved in this situation, and we were looking forward to hosting the All-Star Game, and now it's being pulled out. Feel bad for the Braves. They don't know where the All-Star Game is going to be played. I'm sure they'll get that sorted out soon. But the Players Association is like, look, after what was just passed. And look, this is, I know you're saying, oh, you're getting political. No, this is not a Democrat issue. This is not a Republican issue. This is an American issue. And for baseball, I heard my man Matt Barnes, former NBA player, we're talking about earlier today. When you have baseball, which is America's pastime, right? Like it's, 4th of July, baseball. Memorial Day, baseball. Like kind of our big American holidays, right? Heck, Juneteenth, baseball. Our big American holidays happen during the baseball season, right? And we just attribute it's America's really our oldest professional sport. And we see that if you're America's pastime, then it needs to be as American as possible, right? And what is more American in our culture than voting, right? People fought and died for all of us to have the right to vote. And, going back to the Revolutionary War, going back 250 years. And so when you have this, that is, we talked about last year, right? During 2020, I had ads on the show back when it was just a podcast. I hadn't done the live show yet, but it was just a podcast. And I had the ads saying, hey, get out there, vote. Get out there to these websites. I was advertising websites to get out, register to vote. And now you have Georgia who says, no, let's make it harder to vote, which, of course, we saw the most pivotal state election was, of course, the runoff in Georgia. And the response to that is, because it didn't go our way, we're going to make it more difficult for people, let's be honest, in marginalized communities to vote. And so it's like, man, baseball, we had heard discussions over the last couple of days. Could they pull it out of Atlanta? And I'm like, hey, I think they should. Remember, NBA did a very similar situation, not with voting laws, but with something else. The NBA pulled their All-Star Game out of Charlotte after discriminatory laws were put out there. They said, okay, we're moving it out of Charlotte. We're going to put it in New Orleans. And that's what ended up happening back in 2017. Baseball is doing the same thing. And, let's be honest, Major League Baseball kind of has had the reputation. It's like the good old boys sport, right? It's a I wouldn't say it's predominantly white. Certainly, you have players, Latino players. You do have some black players, Asian players. But certainly, you go back to the history of the game. It has been a predominantly white sport, right? And so when you see this and you see them taking a stand against this crap, it's like, no, voting is our God-given right. It is our right as American citizens to be able to get out there and vote. It needs to be easier to vote, not harder. Who decided that it's a good idea to make voting more difficult? So I applaud Major League Baseball because, again, you're America's pastime. You got to represent America, right? And very few things in our culture are more American than voting. You know, we talk about how proud it is, right? When we go to I can't vote yet. I was thrilled to see people going in record numbers last year, whether it's, mail-ins or going in person, whatever, however you voted last year. It made me happy. It did my heart good to see people, hey, they're going to the polls. They're making their voice heard as American citizens. And, you see people, so many people voted for the very first time last year. I remember Shaquille O'Neal, just to use a sports example. Shaquille O'Neal was talking about it. He said, I voted for the very first time in 2020. And I think Shaq is 48, 49 years old, something like that. So, this is a big moment for him. It was a big moment for a lot of people. You see people getting in their cars, right? You see on Instagram and Twitter, taking a selfie with the sticker, I voted. It's a proud American moment. It's patriotic. It is a patriotic moment, regardless of whether you voted for the Democrat or regardless if you voted for the Republican. It is a proud moment as an American to vote. And the state of Georgia is trying to make that harder. That's not okay. That is what did LeBron James talk about? Voter suppression. This is what his organization, More Than a Vote, was all about. And you see it playing itself out right now in Georgia, and it's disappointing. It's sad, and I applaud Major League Baseball for making this move, for making this decision to pull this game out of Atlanta. Again, it's really not fair to the Braves. I feel bad for the Braves because they're in this situation. It was like, hey, it's not our fault that these crappy laws got passed, but it's that's kind of how it happens, right? If someone does something bad, other people end up getting punished. That's life, and it sucks. But again, if you're America's pastime, you got to represent America's values, and one of our values as Americans is voting, getting out there and making your voice heard. Midterms, local elections, all the way up to the president of the United States. It is your right, if you're 18 and older and you're an American citizen, to get out there and make your voice heard. And we saw that in record numbers last fall, last election season, and some people didn't like it. And you see what happened. And so again, props to Major League Baseball. It ticks me off what happened, but I'm glad Major League Baseball took the stand. Again, this clearly targets the Black community, people in less fortunate communities, making it harder for them to go out and vote. We saw, I think in Texas, they were pulling out voting stations in less fortunate areas of cities in Texas, I think close to Austin. And so it's like, why are you making it more difficult? And I think, listen, let's be honest, I think we all know why. So it's disappointing, but proud of Major League Baseball for taking this stand. Because I didn't know they had it in them, to be honest with you, but I give them credit for doing so. Now, Kevin Durant, I talked about this yesterday towards the end of the show. Kevin Durant was in a beef with Michael Rapaport over DMs on Instagram, going back to December 22nd, 23rd, right after the Nets got their first win of the season against the Golden State Warriors. And, KD was kind of giving one-word answers in his post-game interviews with Charles Barkley and Shaq and Kenny Smith. And Michael Rapaport, somewhat playfully, is DM Kevin Durant. He's like, hey, dude, why don't you answer the bleeping questions? And KD, over the ensuing 3 months, won't let it go. Sending him disgusting DMs. We talking about stuff. We don't want stuff to get personal, right? This went personal on steroids, as I like to say. Like this went way, way over the line. And so you see with KD where he has a press conference yesterday, and you know what I hate? I hate on apologies. Here's what an apology should be. I'm sorry. I'll do better. I'm sorry for those I offended. That's it. That's it. Not why you said it, not this, that. I messed up. I'll do better. And we move on. I'm sorry for those I've offended. Kevin Durant said, basically, in a nutshell, I'm sorry that people saw it. And listen, I criticized Michael Rapaport for putting it out there. That's not your job to do. That's none of our business. That's none of our business what you and Kevin Durant saying in DMs. So that's why I say be careful what you send people, because that could be put out in front of the world. And in this case it was. So Michael Rapaport messed up there. But the language that Kevin Durant was using was downright disgusting. And we saw that, and I'll tell you why $50,000, he was fined $50,000. I'll tell you why that was the right amount. Because, and I criticized the NBA's handling of the Myers-Leonard situation, right? He entered the anti-Semitic slur on a video game live stream, and he got fined $50,000. I don't think $50,000 is enough for hurling an anti-Semitic slur playing video games. That's messed up. You can't, bro, you can't do that. But I'm saying, okay, if 50,000 is if that's the number you're going to use in regards to amount of money you're fining somebody for using something, a word that's racist or a slur, Kevin Durant used an anti-gay slur. He did. You could. Trust me, I'm not going to say it. You can look at the DMs for yourself. It's all over social media. It's all over the internet. You can go look at those for yourself. Point is, whether he was targeting them or not, that word targets that community. It does. And so if 50,000 is the number, and I think it should be higher, but if $50,000 is the number, you're gonna find somebody for saying something that's racist or sexist or homophobic, then Kevin Durant deserves the same fine as Myers-Leonard, because that word is going after a community of people. It is. And you know me, I'm all about loving everybody. I don't care if you're a Democrat or Republican, if you're black, white, straight, gay, Christian, Jew, whatever. It's all about love. It's all about sticking up for each other. It's all about as cliche as it sounds, man, it's what life is all about. It's about sticking up for everybody and not bullying people. And whether KD was going after that community, I don't know. I don't know, because some people use words towards other people. I don't know, but he shouldn't have used that word along with other words. But that one specifically, that is what earned him the $50,000 fine. Again, Michael Rapaport should not have he should not have screenshotted those direct messages. I wouldn't have done it. Don't support him doing it. But now that they are out there, Kevin Durant should be punished. And for those out there saying, oh, Kevin Durant punked Michael Rapaport, you're Kevin Durant, and I said this yesterday, you're Kevin freaking Durant. You are, in my view, as far as God-gifted ability to score the basketball, the best I've ever seen. 7 feet tall, handles the ball like a guard, can get to the rim, 90% free throw shooter. His fadeaway shot, baseline is unguardable. He can cross, break your ankles, cross you over, and can pull up from 35. Like that's Kevin Durant, his offensive game in a nutshell. Now, whether you think he's a great scorer or not, there's plenty of guys you could throw out there. Kobe, Jordan, Wilt, LeBron, Harden. You could throw out a lot of names. But Kevin Durant, it's got to be in the top 5. He has to be in the top 5. And when you think about the fact that he's that great, some little petty insult by an offensive comedian, right, shouldn't bother you that bad. a tweet from some 15, 16-year-old kid out of, from South Dakota who has 35 followers shouldn't bother you, Kevin. It shouldn't. And listen, I talked about it yesterday. There is something going on, and I'm no psychologist, by the way. Speaking of mental health experts, check out my interview with Dr. John Deloney, available 7 a.m. on Monday, 7 a.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. or 4 a.m. Pacific time. He's a mental health expert. But when you see people, what's the saying? Hurt people hurt people. And I don't know what's going on in Kevin Durant's personal life. I don't know what's going on in his life, mentally, spiritually, whatever it is. It's kind of sad when I look at it that a little, it wasn't even like that bad. Rapaport was just criticizing him for the way he handled the interview. That's not like Rapaport didn't make it personal. And he's a guy who's known for doing stuff like that, right? He makes it personal. He didn't do that in this situation. He's saying, hey, dude, you got to answer the questions. Come on, man. With, certainly more colorful language than what I just used. And KD just kept going and going and went after Rapaport's wife. Said she don't want you. Said, I'm gonna pull up on you in your neighborhood and spit in your face. It's like, hold up. All of that because he criticized the way you handled an interview. It bothered you that bad that you kept it going over and over for 3 months. Dude, let it go. It doesn't hold that much weight. Seriously, if you think about it, a little petty insult shouldn't hold that much weight. For real, it's like, come on. We got to stop being so, and maybe that's what is kind of with, like, KD's a millennial, right? I'm part of Gen Z. Like, kind of the last two generations, millennials and Gen Zers. Our pros are that we're more socially aware than ever. We're not about discrimination or hating other people. Not saying other generations are, certainly, but I'm saying us more than probably any other millennials, Gen Zers. Our problem is we can be a little too sensitive on social media. We can. And listen, my thing is, look, if someone, and listen, people have I can promise you, people went after me on social media for sports opinions I've had, certainly not to the degree of Kevin Durant. He's Kevin Durant. I'm Bryson Carver from Carving It Up, right? There's levels. But people went after, you just got to let it go, man. Who cares? Like, you got to, I'm all about, I love responding to people on social media. I like to, as long as it's in a respectful, doesn't get personal way, right? Sports opinions and whatnot. I got one rule. Anytime I'm going back and forth, don't ever get personal. Because that's where it crosses the line. You don't ever go into another man or another woman's personal life. You don't do that. And Kevin Durant crossed the line times 20 with this beef. And if, because of the word that he used, the homophobic slur that he used, if we're going to fine, if $50,000 is the fine for saying something like that, like you did with Myers Leonard for the word he used towards the Jewish community, then I think that's the appropriate fine for Kevin Durant. Now, maybe I'm wrong on that, but I feel like that sounds about right. It's just the main thing for me is, like, I can't believe that it bothers him this bad. Like, we know LeBron is active on social media. He's just as active as KD is, right? LeBron is, he a lot of tweets every day, Instagram posts, Instagram stories. Like, he's active on social media. And he don't get into little petty beefs with LeBron's, whatever beefs LeBron has had have either been private or they've not been on social media. Like, I can't remember a LeBron James beef on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, whatever. I can name you 10 at the very least with Kevin Durant. He's had beefs with Skip Bayless and Chris Broussard and Shannon Sharp and of course now with Michael Rapaport, with 13-year-olds on Instagram and Joe Breezy on YouTube. It's like, dude, don't let it bother you that bad. It's not it's not that serious. And listen, there are people, in their mama's basement that are going to get personal with you because everybody's big and tough behind the keyboard. There's not as tough as in person as they are behind the keyboard, whether it's their phone, their computer, whatever. There are people that are going to take it personal, and those are the hardest ones to ignore, right? But you just got to say, they want me to respond. You're playing it into their hands by responding. They want you to respond. So you just got to say, look, I'm Kevin Durant. I don't even know what Kevin Durant's worth. He's going to be a billionaire at some point in his life because of his off the court, his 35 ventures with his agent, Rich Kleiman. He's got the boardroom on ESPN Plus. He's got a very successful shoe brand with Nike. He's going, especially the money he's made on the court, by the way, he's going to be a billionaire at some point in his life. Similar to LeBron. Steph Curry's going to be a billionaire at some point. Like those three are pretty much guaranteed to be that with a B, right? Billionaires. You just got to say, I'm KD. I'm a guaranteed first ballot Hall of Famer, guaranteed top 15 player in the history of basketball. Yes, he is. If I retire today, I've got 2 rings, 2 finals MVP. I got a regular season MVP. I've beaten LeBron twice. Not one time. I've beaten LeBron twice in the NBA finals and hit a clutch dagger shot in his arena, in his home building, in back-to-back game 3s. I'm that dude. Who cares what Joe Blow says on Instagram or what Michael Rapaport, even with the platform he has, who cares what a comedian says in my DMs? Whatever. It's just, come on, man. And listen, like I said, Rapaport shouldn't have exposed that. He shouldn't have. But because we do now know, come on, Kevin. Yeah, it shouldn't really get to you that severely, that bad. So, appropriate move by the NBA, $50,000, and I think it should be more. But if $50,000 is the amount of money you're going to fine a guy for using, in Myers Leonard's case, an anti-Semitic slur, in Kevin Durant's case, a homophobic slur, then that's about what he should be fined. So, appropriate move by the NBA. I don't know if a suspension would have. I don't know how you could really suspend KD. He's hurt right now, but sounds like the appropriate move to me by Adam Silver and by the NBA. So, let's talk about the Final Four, which is, of course, the most. I always say the Final Four, in my view, if we look at, I say it's not my 3 favorite events in professional sports. The Super Bowl is number 1, man. I mean, come on, nothing trumps the Super Bowl. It's the Super Bowl. Everybody watches it worldwide, not just here in the U.S. The Super Bowl is my favorite sporting event. The NBA I love the NBA Finals. They're my second favorite, and then it's probably in between the World Series or March over the World Series. But I think the 3 biggest events in American sports, as viewed by the general public, is the Super Bowl 1, the Masters 2, March Madness 3. So this is it. This is the Final Four. And the women's bracket has gotten more attention than ever, as it should. It's been outstanding. Some of the games have been incredible. Of course, recently, we've actually got a game going on right now between South Carolina and Stanford. That game is already tipped off. And right now, with 4:29 left in the first quarter, South Carolina has a 15-6 lead over Stanford. I did yesterday pick South Carolina to win. I think they're going to get to the national championship. I think Dawn Staley is as good of a coach as there is in the sport. She's done an amazing job building that program to what it is now. She's won national championships, so she's as good as they come. That's a great South Carolina Gamecocks basketball team, and so that's. I believe they're going to beat Stanford. Certainly, it's very early in the game, but I got Stanford winning. And then the game tonight, 9:30 Eastern, you got 3-seed Arizona, 1-seed UConn. I know Arizona. I read earlier today that there was like a Final Four hype video made, and Arizona wasn't included with UConn, South Carolina, and Stanford. I mean, no disrespect whatsoever to Arizona, because getting to the Final Four is hard. It is hard, but they're not beating UConn. UConn's winning by 20 plus. Let's just say it for what it is. UConn is going to win by 20 plus. Now, certainly UConn in their last, I think it's their last two Final Fours, they've struggled. Like, they've lost. They had the winning streak. It was up over, I think it was like 111 game winning streak. It was something insane. They hadn't lost in like 2 or 3 straight years, maybe more than that. And they played an overtime game, I'll never forget this, against Mississippi State, the women's Final Four in Dallas, Texas. I know my man Dak Prescott was there, Mississippi State guy going to support the women's basketball team. And this player for point guard, I think, for Mississippi State, she was like 4'9", 4'10", and she slayed the giant, which is UConn, at the buzzer with a pull-up jumper, mid-range, to send UConn home, to send Mississippi State to the national championship. They ended up losing, I believe it was to South Carolina, ironically, but it was a clutch shot by her, and it was one of my all-time favorite sports moments. Like, it was great. And then a year later, UConn is in the Final Four, and they're taking on Notre Dame. And deja vu, a player for Notre Dame hits a game-winning 3 in overtime to beat UConn. And so UConn has had their Final Four struggles, but I said before the tournament, I got UConn winning the whole thing. I got them playing South Carolina in the national championship game, and UConn wins it. And again, South Carolina has gotten off to a good start. They got a 9-point lead, 4.5 minutes left in the first quarter. Still a lot of time left. But I believe South Carolina is going to be a very, very elite Stanford basketball team. And I got UConn beating Arizona later tonight, setting us up for the national championship game, which I believe will be on Sunday afternoon. So looking forward to that. Now we got the men's Final Four. Now my national champion is out. Michigan. I picked Michigan to win the whole dance, right? And UCLA, 11 seed UCLA, started in the first 4, a play-in game against Michigan State, which they won by the skin of their teeth in overtime. And now them guys are in the Final Four. So props to them, right? And you heard me talk about early in the tournament. I said the problem is with this tournament is there's too many darn upsets. Ohio, Abilene Christian, Loyola Chicago. You had who else am I missing? Oral Roberts. It's like, oh no, this is 2018 all over again. We can't have a Loyola Chicago or an Ohio or an Abilene Christian or somebody getting to the Final Four. College basketball's, I said it, college basketball's worst nightmare is if a lower, lesser-known seed gets to the Final Four. Because that's what happened in 2018. Loyola played Michigan, played a pretty decent game, but of course Michigan's the more talented team, and they beat Loyola 3 years ago in the Final Four. So college basketball wiped their brow with that one. It was like, oh boy, we dodged a bullet. So you say you don't like lower seeds. Time out. I said lower seeds, lesser known programs. UCLA is not lesser known. They're an 11 seed. They're not, I'm not saying this is the second coming of Kareem or some Bill Walton, some of the great players that have went to UCLA, even more recently, Russell Westbrook, Kevin Love, that have played at UCLA, Baron Davis. But this is a good team that's gotten hot. And you know who they remind me of? They remind me a little bit of that, I think it was the 2011 UConn team led by Kemba Walker, who had an average regular season and then just got hot. And they danced all the way to the national championship, and good on them. They won the whole thing. UCLA reminds me of that of that UConn team a little bit. But the first game tomorrow night, tip-off is at 5:14. It's a weird tip-off time. 5:14 Eastern, 2:14 Pacific time on CBS. You got the Houston Cougars taking on the Baylor Bears. Houston's a 2 seed, Baylor's a 1 seed. This is as good of a matchup as you could have. Now, Baylor looks great against Arkansas. I figured they would. And they need a Houston team, which totally obliterated Oregon State in the Elite Eight. Oregon State just kind of ran out of their magic, and Houston advanced. Houston has been an underrated team all year. They have been covered enough, in my opinion. They're a 2 seed for a reason. So this will be the best game tomorrow. You look at the two games, this will be the best game tomorrow. The first game will be the best. I'm going to take Houston. I'm going to take Houston in the upset to beat Baylor. They're playing great basketball. They've got the one kid, Baylor does. I'm trying to find him here. Davion Mitchell. Man, that kid's athletic. He is so explosive. He reminds me a little bit of Donovan Mitchell. Ironically, same last name, and I think they wear the same number. But just an explosive athlete. And so Houston's going to have problems containing him. But I feel like over the course of the tournament, I've liked what Houston's done more than I like what Baylor has done. I think they've looked slightly more impressive. Baylor's had their spurts where they haven't been great defensively. So I'm going to take Houston to beat Baylor in a close game. I will take them to win. Let's go with the final score of 69-66. That is my final score. Houston defeats Baylor. I almost said upsets, but come on, it's 2-seed over 1-seed. That's not really an upset. So I'll take Houston to advance to the national championship game with a win over Baylor. And then the second game of the Final Four, which tips off at 8:34 Eastern, 5:34 Pacific. Again, these tip-off times, I don't get them. But also on CBS. By the way, the previous game, Baylor's favored -5 by Vegas. So they like Baylor, but they don't love Baylor. But then you go to UCLA, 11-seed UCLA in the Final Four, 1-seed Gonzaga, who is 30-0 and has just looked unbelievable. And I go to unbeatable because going into that Elite Eight game, and before the tournament started, I have to admit, listen, it's my right to gloat when I'm right on the show. It's also my obligation to admit when I'm wrong or to stand up here in front of this mic and say, hey, my bad, wrong on this one. That's what we got to do. I don't respect the podcasters, which there are not many podcasts. Podcasters are great. But, people in the media that say something, they have a big opinion, and then when they're proven wrong, they never address it again. No, you admit when you're wrong. And I was wrong on Gonzaga. I figured that Kansas would get to the Elite Eight, and they would upset Gonzaga. Dead wrong on that one. Kansas went out in the second round. And they're playing, Gonzaga played USC, 6-seed USC. Now, obviously, UC 6-seed, 1-seed, 6-seed. And I'm thinking, okay, I got Gonzaga winning, but I believe the Mobley brothers with USC will give them issues. USC, by the way, was the number 1 team in America, in the entire country, in block shots. Guess how many blocks they had the other night against Gonzaga? Donut. Goose egg. Nothing. Not a single block on Gonzaga. Again, Gonzaga's defense was stifling in that game. They held USC overall to 39% shooting from the field, 27% from three, so they were locked down start to finish. That's something to me that doesn't get enough credit. Gonzaga runs, great offense. Obviously, Jalen Suggs, who's going to go top 5 in the draft. But when you look at them overall, their defense is shut down. So UCLA has struggled offensively at times. They've had possessions where they're running it down and they don't get a good shot. So my question is, how is UCLA going to be able to create their offense with against this great Gonzaga defense? That's my biggest question. And I've got Gonzaga winning easily. I'm going to take them actually, excuse me. I'm going to take Gonzaga to win by 18, 19 points, close to 20. I don't think this one's close. This is a stacked team. I kind of have a rule going into March Madness, a personal rule, that you never pick the prohibitive favorite going into the tournament. Like the last tournament we had, it was Duke, right? Duke was, I think they were the number 1 overall seed. You had Zion and RJ Barrett, and you even had Cam Reddish, who had a down year, but he was effective, and Coach K. And Duke went out in the Elite Eight. And, Duke was like hanging on by the skin of their teeth against, they struggled against North Dakota State before they finally got it going. They barely beat UCF. They barely beat Virginia Tech, and then they barely lose to Michigan State in the Elite Eight a couple years back. That was the last tournament we had where everybody picked Duke, and I'm like, I don't know. Normally, the prohibitive favorite doesn't win. We have not had an undefeated champion since 1976. You remember the 1990 UNLV team that went undefeated and then lost. You had very recently the 2015 Kentucky Wildcats with Karl Anthony Towns and Devin Booker, and they went out in the Final Four against Wisconsin. And so I always say, don't pick the favorite. And in this case, it looks like Gonzaga is just they're everybody else is here. Gonzaga's here. They're just a level above everybody else. Mark Few, I've always said, is one of the best coaches in America. I know he coaches with Greg Popovich. He's in the coaching staff with Team USA. The players love him, and so credit to him and the job he's done with the Zags. And I believe I thought USC would give Gonzaga problems. Gonzaga did whatever they wanted to do with the USC Trojans. So I think that will be the same case with with another team in Southern California. This time UCLA, they had an unbelievable run. Credit to them, but Gonzaga's going to win easily. I don't see how UCLA can get any offense going. Again, they've gone to overtime. They've been in these close games against teams that are not even close to as good as Gonzaga. What are they going to do now that they're going against the best? This is the best team, no debate. Again, I think Gonzaga wins by about 20 and advances to the national championship game to take on Houston. That is my prediction for the Final Four on the men's bracket. As far as the women's bracket, Final Four is going on right now. And at the end of the first quarter, we got a tied basketball game. So, hey, that's exciting. South Carolina 15, Stanford 15. And so this is this is going to be a fun game. I think this is going to be the best of the two games. In the women's bracket tonight, again, UConn takes on Arizona tonight at 9:30 Eastern on ESPN. Again, Vegas loves UConn, minus 13.5. I love UConn as well. I think they cover and win this one easily. So it's going to be a fun night of basketball tonight. Give me a fun night of basketball tomorrow. And I'm looking forward to the Final Four. Now, sticking with that, let's talk about Paige Beckers. And I've tried to make it a constant effort because, listen, I heard Draymond Green talk about this the other day, that female athlete stories are not told enough. They're not. And listen, man, when Draymond said it, LeBron has said it, Steph has said it, that, hey, I learn more about the game of basketball when I watch the women. Like I learn about the game. I get smarter watching these women go out there and do their thing, right? And so it ticks me off when I see, the internet jokes. Oh, you need to, these kitchen jokes, right? The ultimate sexist joke, right? And so, I mean, listen, when you sit down and watch a WNBA game, you got great players, and no doubt about it. And you have this girl, Paige Beckers, plays for UConn. She's out of the state of Minnesota. She was by far the best player in high school while she was there. And she goes to UConn. And, of course, we all know UConn women's basketball legacy. I mean, of course, Gino Auriemma, best coach in women's college basketball, no question about it. But the players that have come out of there, Taurasi, Bird, you look at more recently Breanna Stewart. I mean, they've had some players come out of there. She might be the best. Don't believe me? Ask Sue Bird, who's the greatest point guard in the history of the WNBA. Ask her. She was on a show earlier today. I think it was with Stephen A. Smith. And she was saying, yeah, this is as talented a kid as I've ever seen in the women's game. She's as good as they come. She can shoot the basketball. She's a great ball handler. She's good on defense, underrated on defense. And she is a competitor. And I love it. I love athletes that play with that dog in them, with that edge, right? That even when you're the best player, when you have that edge, right? That's what people loved about Jordan. That's what people loved about Kobe. That's been my biggest criticism of a guy I love, LeBron James, is I don't see that killer, take your heart and rip it out of your chest mentality. That's what's so great about so many athletes today and in the past. She's got it. There's just some athletes got it and some don't. And you could still be great without it. again, LeBron. And listen, we've seen times where LeBron has went into that killer mode against, many times against Boston in the playoffs, or against, don't remind me, my Golden State Warriors in the NBA Finals, against the Spurs in the Finals. We've seen those moments. But I'm talking about nonstop, in this case, college basketball, 40-minute game. I mean, just competing your butt off. And she's as good as they come. And so you see that, and I hear some people say, oh, she's cocky, she's arrogant. And I've always said, I've always said this in the show. Like, if someone complains about someone being cocky and arrogant, my response is, well, do they have a right to be? Are they good enough? Does their aura validate what they're doing on the court, on the field? Well, okay then. As Cam Newton once said after a game, the Panthers were playing. This is Cam's MVP year. They're playing a game against the Titans, and Carolina's up big, and Cam scores a touchdown from the 1-yard line. He's doing a little dance, and a Titans linebacker comes up and he shoves Cam. He doesn't like it, and that linebacker of the game is complaining. It's disrespectful. And Cam said after the game, "Hey, if you don't want me to dance, don't let me score." And Cam that year in the Super Bowl didn't do a whole lot of dancing. He did a whole lot of getting hit against Denver. Denver was like, okay, we don't want you to dance, so we ain't going to let you score. We're not going to let you get outside the pocket. And that's what happened. So if you don't like Paige Beckers, stop her. Unless you can do that, she's going to keep doing her thing. And so I love watching her play. She's got a great edge to her. And again, I think UConn's going to win the whole thing. Keep in mind, she's a freshman. She won AP Player of the Year, which, again, has never been done by a freshman. She did that. And it's messed up that she can't come out of UConn yet. You can't come out of college basketball at the women's level at your freshman year, which I think is absolutely ridiculous. She's WNBA ready. Sabrina Ionescu 2 years ago was WNBA ready, but she had to wait. Well, she came back for her senior year, but she could have left her after her junior year. It's ridiculous. But her ability to score the basketball, to shoot it off the dribble, she reminds you a little bit of, and I heard Sue Bird talking about this earlier, she reminds you a little bit of Trae Young, to a higher degree, of Steph Curry. The ability to shoot the basketball off the dribble, to get to the rim, she's got that. She's got that ability. Obviously, she's clearly a hard worker. She's going to be something once she gets to the pro level. She's already something on the college level. And so props to her. UConn's going to win the whole thing. She's going to be named the most outstanding player. She's averaging 22 a game during the tournament. She's a special, special basketball player, and people got to start watching her. I mean, you got an opportunity tonight, 9:30 Eastern, 6:30 Pacific. You got to watch this girl play. She's good. Really good. So, and she reminds me a little bit of Trae Young, a little bit of Steph Curry. Paige Beckers is that star. She's the best player in college basketball as a freshman. As a freshman, she's the best player, which is why she should be able to come out. Unfortunately, she can't. But once she gets to the WNBA, look out. It's going to be lights out because she can shoot the lights out of the basketball. So, final topic of the day. Let's talk about a team. I haven't really talked about this team in a while, the Philadelphia Eagles. Jalen Hurts, according to reports, is changing his number from number 2 to number 1, kind of indicating, hey, I'm the starter. And, we saw they signed Joe Flacco. Joe Flacco at this stage in his career is not as good as Jalen Hurts. My thing with Jalen Hurts, and I agreed with them benching Carson Wentz for him because Wentz was just playing so bad. It was like, man, anything would be an upgrade. Unless you signed, Nathan Peterman, it's anything is an upgrade at this point in the season. And they started Jalen Hurts, and he won a game against the New Orleans Saints. And I get it, Taysom Hill was starting. It wasn't Drew Brees. But for what it's worth, he beat the New Orleans Saints. The Saints had a long winning streak, and Jalen Hurts and the Philadelphia Eagles broke that streak. Excuse me. But I look at the situation, I'm like, man, the Eagles are making the same mistake with Jalen Hurts as they made with Carson Wentz. Now, to be clear, I've never been a Carson Wentz fan. I think he is immensely talented. However, he doesn't have the natural leadership qualities. He's inconsistent, and he gets hurt. And the best, what's the old saying? It's cliche, but cliches are normally true. The best ability is availability. And Carson Wentz, too often in the biggest games, just wasn't available. And so you had Nick Foles coming in and saving the day. But we're seeing this now with Carson Wentz, and as we did, we're seeing it now with Jalen Hurts as we did with Carson Wentz. Carson Wentz, they move on from Nick Foles, which I think was a mistake. Nick Foles is not as good as Carson Wentz, but he fit the system better. We've seen situations like that many times in the NFL. When you have Carson Wentz, you give him that big contract. You give him the big contract, and you go into 2020, and you think, and Carson's like, okay, I'm the guy. I just got us to the playoffs, albeit in a garbage division, but I got to the playoffs. I played well, albeit against garbage teams, Dallas, Giants, Washington. But hey, for what it's worth, I got us there. And then all of a sudden, the second round, and it confused everybody, they draft Jalen Hurts. And when that happened, I was like, hold on. I thought you said for months Carson Wentz is our franchise quarterback. Why are you taking Jalen Hurts in the second round? Like, I didn't. If the Eagles had never said Carson Wentz is our franchise guy, or if he hadn't been paid yet, I'd have had no problem with it, because the Eagles had not committed to Carson Wentz, and in my view, they had good reason not to. And I said back in December when he was benched, Carson, this is on you. You played like straight trash. Okay, I don't want to hear about your supporting cast. Aaron Rodgers has that bad supporting cast. Dak Prescott has that bad supporting cast. Deshaun Watson has that bad supporting cast. You, my friend, are just because you have supporting cast doesn't mean you're playing. You should play to the level that you're playing. I mean, he was bad last year. I mean, people talk about how bad Jameis Winston was in 2019. Of course, they moved on from him and signed Tom Brady, and the rest is history. For what it's worth, at least Jameis Winston threw 30 touchdowns. He threw 30 picks too, but at least he threw 30 touchdowns. Wentz only threw 16 before he was benched. So you look at it and it's like, oh my God, the Eagles are making the same mistake. They won't commit to Jalen Hurts as their starter. They won't. You look at they signed Joe Flacco, and there's rumblings, hey, Joe Flacco may compete for the number one job. Come on, man. Joe Flacco couldn't beat Sam Darnold out for the job. He's not beating Jalen Hurts out. My criticism of Jalen Hurts' game, and these can be fixed. Turnovers, Wentz committed many turnovers, but in the 3 starts that Jalen Hurts made, he committed 7. But as a rookie, you can clean that up. It's harder it's just like in life. If you build a bad habit and you keep, you don't address that bad habit, you don't try to fix it, it's going to be that much harder to address and to fix. And the same case with a quarterback. If you're early in your career and you're turning the football over, that can be fixed. That can be coached out of you. That's why I believe in Jameis Winston with the Saints. That's why I think the Saints needed today say, Jameis is our starter. Stop it about Taysom Hill. He's not an NFL quarterback. He's Tim Tebow. Tebow wasn't an NFL quarterback. He's an NFL player, just not a quarterback. Jameis Winston, I believe Sean Payton, Jameis isn't 30 yet. Sean Payton can coach the turnovers out of Jameis Winston. I truly believe that. I believe that this new coaching staff, for however good it is in Philadelphia, this can be coached out of Jalen Hurts. So there's that, and he had accuracy issues. He completed about 55% of his passes. That's not good enough in today's NFL. He's going to have to up that number to about 65. Or even like 62, 63. Like he's going to need to get it to about that to be effective in this league. But we see with poorly run organizations, which the Eagles are, they're a poorly run franchise. How do I know that? Well, Bryson, they won the Super Bowl just 3 years ago. Just 3 years ago, the Philadelphia Eagles were the Super Bowl champions, and they beat the New England Patriots and Tom Brady to do it with a backup quarterback. But what did we see in the offseason? I always say, if you're an artist, you can get that number one hit, but what do you do after it? Are there more number one hits? Or are you just, that one hit wonder? Are you remember for that, or multiple hits? And in the case of the Philadelphia Eagles, they were the one hit wonder. They had one great year. And we saw that offseason. People who aren't used to success don't handle success well. Doug Peterson writing a book, and I've always been critical. Bro, you ain't done nothing. This is the NFL. Listen, winning a Super Bowl is great. But you got to win multiple Super Bowls. You got to win multiple divisions. You got to get to the playoffs multiple years and be effective in the playoffs to be considered a top head coach. Not just because he made one great call, the Philly special. Again, one, that's key number one. You made one great call in the Super Bowl, the Philly special. Everybody remembers it. Nick Foles catches the touchdown from Trey Burton, and that kind of propelled the Eagles toward, as the end of the first half, they propelled them to victory over New England. But you had Lane Johnson saying, New England doesn't have fun winning. Okay, Lane, have you seen the championship parades in Boston? Listen, New England, it's the culture wasn't fun. It's part of the reason I believe Brady left, because it just flat out wasn't fun in that culture. But if your definition of fun is just messing around during the season and you're just on sheer talent, you're going to get to the Super Bowl, that ain't how the NFL works. Because when you're the hunted, the Eagles, when they won the Super Bowl, they were the hunters. The Patriots were the hunted. But when you're the hunted, which the Eagles were after they won the Super Bowl, whole different ballgame. Because guess what? You're the number one biggest game on everybody's schedule. You got to bring your A game every single week. That's what you got to do. And they didn't do that in 2018. They didn't do that in 2019, and they dang sure didn't do it last year. 4-12, or 4-12, is it 4? No, they were 4-11-1. Still not very good. So I'm all about this. Like, just because you had one big success doesn't mean you are a success. You got to have multiple little successes, big successes, to culminate into being a successful human being into whatever you're doing. Whether it's an occupation, whether it's being a good parent, whether it's being a good spouse, whether it's being a good, in my case, a podcaster or a student or an athlete or a performer or an entertainer, whatever you do. The definition of success is the little successes, all culminating in the big one. So that's what I'm saying. It's the difference. I've used this comparison before. It's the difference between Trey Songz and Drake. Trey Songz was big for a little while, but Drake has the most number one hits of any artist in history. Like, it's sustained success that makes you great, that people remember you for. So that's what I'm saying. So the Eagles are not a well-run franchise, and they're making the same mistake with Jalen Hurts. Heck, that's why Doug Peterson got fired, because I don't care if it was a meaningless game. If it was a meaningless game, don't start Jalen Hurts. If they had started Nate Sudfeld before the game, okay. But they're starting Jalen Hurts. He's playing pretty well against a very good a great Washington football team defense. And then just out of nowhere, you yank him. It's like, wait, hold up. And the NBC's cameras pan to Jalen Hurts on the sideline, and you read his lips. He's shaking his head. He's saying, "This is messed up, man. This is messed up." And it was messed up. Like, you told us you were about winning the game, but you put your backup in when your starter's playing well. It's like, it doesn't make a whole lot of that doesn't register. Like, you're trying to win, but you bench your starter who's playing well. Something's not registering here. And that's why I believe part of the reason they fired Doug Peterson is because I don't know if Jalen Hurts and Peterson could ever really come together after that. Like, that's a hard thing to come back from. And so they hired this new guy, Nick Sirianni, and who had one of the worst press conferences I've ever seen for a new head coach. Looked like he was reading off a dang teleprompter. It is a pleasure to be the head coach of the Philadelphia Eagles, and I'm looking forward to working with this great football team and try and win champion. I was like, oh, what was that? Dan Campbell in Detroit, we're going to bite kneecaps off. And as soon as I heard that, I'm like, 3-13. Detroit's going to be terrible again. Because if that's the first thing you say at your press conference, not we're going to look to improve every day. Kind of, even, I know it's cliches and fans don't like cliches, but you kind of have to use them. It's better than biting kneecaps or reading off teleprompters or doing like Adam Gase. Sorry for our podcast audience. But just, looking around like you don't know where you are. Like, press conferences matter for new head coaches, and Nick Sirianni blew his. And it once again shows that the Eagles are not a winning franchise. We think of them as like this iconic brand because it is the city of Philadelphia. But what have they won? They won one Super Bowl recently. But what have they won? I mean, come on. We got to keep it real here. So this is not a well-run franchise, and they're making the same mistake with Hurts as they did with Wentz. And losing franchises keep losing. This is how it works until they hire the right people. Look at the Cleveland Browns. Cleveland as a city, as a sports city, is not exactly known for winning. But they get the right coach there, the right personnel, and the Cleveland Browns were that close to going to the AFC Championship game last year. So they're building something. You got to get the right people in the building. It is not impossible. If you get the right people in the building and build the franchise back up, or sometimes it's back up if you're an iconic brand, or build it in the case of Cleveland, who have not been an iconic brand since the 60s with Jim Brown. So just they're making the same mistake again, the Eagles are, with Jalen Hurts as they did with Carson Wentz. And with all that is all the time we have for today's show. It is Good Friday. Hope everybody has a great weekend, great Easter weekend. Please continue to stay safe. God bless you all. Stay safe. He is risen. Peace out.